How do you pronounce the first bit of your game here? I'm gonna try Schachkampf fantasy chess.
Schach.
Schach.
Schach. Most English people say Schach oder Schachkampf. That's okay too.
Yes.
I choose German words on purpose because I like the sound of German words in English.
Yes, really.
So I easily could have chosen an English term, but like if English-speaking persons use German words like kindergarten, rucksack, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
That's maybe the reason why bands like Rammstein are very popular in English countries. Besides, they just have German texts.
Yeah.
Somehow German fits the English language very well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can relate to what you're saying. So, what do you think that really sets apart indie games from AAA titles? What's the major difference between the two?
The obvious part is saying something like the heart and soul a developer puts into it. But for me, it's the time frame. If I play an indie game, it's easy to start with the game, easy to stop playing. Most of the game have a very short time frame, like 5 hours playthrough time. Only some mechanics you have to learn. There are exceptions from that, like Dwarf Fortress or Stardew Valley.
Yeah.
But most indie games are very short and have a retro feeling.
Yeah.
It's like I do myself with pixel art or voxel graphics. Everything looks kind of old, and like the games I grew up with. That's why I like the old. That's why I like pixel art and indie games.
Yeah. So the nostalgia behind it, right?
The nostalgia, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
And why do you think that is, that you have that different time frame in the gameplay?
Because you have smaller teams,
Right.
and a smaller scope of time. So the indie games, which have a long playthrough time, like Stardew Valley, have a tremendous amount of developing time.
Yes.
They're made by people who worked for years and years on a game and eventually got success, and most of them didn't.
Yes.
But the standard indie game is 5 friends working for half a year on a game. So you have a limited time to develop, and so you have a limited time of content you can put into the game. And you have to choose wisely what you have to put into the game.
Yes.
It's more of a precise gaming experience, like merging 2 genres. If you want to jump one racing game, you maybe have the jump run elements, you have racing, you have ghosts and an online high score or something like that.
Right.
But you don't have an open world RPG jump one racing game, because this would simply be too much to implement.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you could say that, like you mentioned, you really have to pick and choose what you're going to put in there. And I like the way you say it, where it's a much more precise gaming experience. And I think it'd be fair to say, I don't know if you agree, as an indie game developer, it's kind of your job to make the best out of the limited resources that you have, and really make them shine in a way that it could outperform some AAA titles in terms of popularity, which is pretty surprising in some cases, how well an indie game can do.
Yeah, the few games with success are always a big surprise. And they have always some cool mechanic no one else thought about before them.
Yes, yeah. A lot of the time you'll have, it sounds a little cliche, but you'll have a little bit more souls inside the indie game versus the AAA game, where the AAA is usually going to try to go for something safer that they know has been working for a long time. And I think it makes sense, because as a AAA studio, you have a lot on the line, a lot of expenses and things like that. So you can't just go and try things for fun and see if they're going to work or not. As an indie game developer, you kind of have that liberty of saying, okay, well, I'm gonna try this for 6 months, like you've mentioned, and we'll see what happens.
But in my experience, that is already different between hobbyist indie game devs and full-time indie game dev.
Meaning?
If you have to live from the earnings of your games, you have to deliver, let's say, every 6 months.
Yeah.
And every game has to earn an amount of X dollar so you can survive over the year.
Right.
And if you have a job besides your indie gaming, you don't need to have a successful game, and you can play way more around with features and even time frames. You can say, after 6 months, it's not enough. I release in a year or something like that.
Yeah, that's true. So as you gain more and more success as an indie game developer, that kind of freedom does have a tendency of naturally going away a little bit, because you do have to make money. You have to finish a product, and you need to commercialize it. So that's interesting. And what inspired you to become an indie game developer to begin with? How did this get started for you?
My first inspiration is many, many years ago, a game called Graal Online.
Is that German?
I don't know how. Grail. It's not a German game.
No? Okay.
I think it's a Chinese game.
Oh, okay.
Or something like that. And it's a Zelda-like MMORPG with a very strong level editor. Back then, you could host your own servers with your own levels and your own worlds and play on them with your friends, or go onto the official servers and play like an MMO.
Right.
That was the start where I hit levels, played with friends, and then I forgot game dev for many, many, many years. And in my 30s, I started studying in the IT. I don't know how this is pronounced what this course is in English. Wirtschafts- and IT economics, maybe, or IT management, something like that. And during my time at university, I searched for a job as a developer. So I wanted to get working experience while studying.
Right.
And more randomly, I found a freelancing job to make a card game in Xamarin.
A card game?
A card game for the university, for machine learning courses, to teach the students how some things work in machine learning, how efficient robots work, and they should experience that themselves with help of this card game. That was the whole idea. They gave me a complete concept. I didn't have to invent the game. They gave me a concept. They gave me the rules for the card game. I just had to make this specific card game in Xamarin. Yes.
Okay. And
I
what kind of engine were you doing that on?
Xamarin. Also .NET Xamarin is the equivalent to React Native.
Okay.
I don't know
how you're maybe some of the viewers are.
That's not for game development. Normally, it's for app development.
Okay.
So my cards, for example, have just been lists of images because there is not such a kind of UI where you can drag and drop things or click on. You have to work with buttons and lists because it's not a game engine, like I said. And during that development, I recognized that I want to make more. And that working with such
there.
Yeah, exactly. And
before you went to university, were you coding before that?
Just HTML, CSS, JavaScript.
So
So just a little bit of coding for homepages.
Just for homepages, yeah. Okay. So
I worked in a completely different field. I was a fitness coach.
Really?
It has nothing to do with development.
Oh, that's an interesting switch, but it's normal to have different passions in life, and there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah, it came with a family.
Yeah.
Fitness coach is a really great job.
Okay.
But you have to work when others have free time.
Yeah.
And when my wife became pregnant, I thought, okay, when my kids come back from school in a few years, they come back at like say 1 p.m. and I have to start work at 3 p.m. So I wouldn't see my kids at all.
Yeah.
And in the IT field, you can work from home. You can choose your own times. I can even take a day off and work in the night or whatever. It's very flexible. So I thought maybe studying again is worth it, and it was.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I've been studying programming and things like that on my own time. I started a few years ago, and a little bit for the same reasons or reasoning as you. I always felt like it's a nice thing to learn. It's a good backup for the future, where there's a lot of flexibilities where you can work from home. Me myself, I work in electronics, so I'm pretty close. And so I always had a little bit of knowledge of coding, and I thought that making games would be a fun way to learn coding. Right?
Yeah, a lot of people start with small games.
Yeah.
You see your result. It's much more interesting than just making a database.
Yeah.
For example.
That's it. And what kind of programs are you using now to code your game?
Unity, that's the big one.
Yeah.
A-Sprite for my pixel art.
Okay, yeah. That's what our artist uses as well.
Yeah, that's, I would say, the most popular pixel art program.
Yeah.
And cheap.
I'd say so.
Like about $10 or so. It's totally worth it.
Yes.
For Schachkampf, I bought all the music, but for smaller games, I make it myself with Bosca Seoye. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's some Spanish word. It's a small program for bit music.
Bit music, okay, yes.
Old school retro sounding music, and it's not too complex.
No?
You can make some music, some mediocre music in a very short amount of time,
Really?
and that's enough for a 40-hour game jam game.
Yeah.
Besides
if you could actually afterwards maybe send me a link of these tools, and I can put them in the description. And I'd like to check out that one you're using for the bit music actually. That'd be
Try it out. It's pretty cool and pretty, like I said, pretty simple.
Yeah.
Trello for organizing is a very important tool for me.
Which one?
Trello.
Okay.
Kanban,
yes.
Like Kanban boards, or
Right.
Kanban boards. Adobe XD, or XD, like I would say in English, for UI design.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
worked in a marketing agency, and that's like state of the art for agencies to make the UI. And for me, it's a good way to scribble out menus before I implement them in the game.
That's interesting. So you
and
also
Adobe
you
XD.
also work in marketing?
Not more. Worked in marketing agency, but as a back-end .NET developer.
Okay. Yeah.
But in a small agency, we had like 20 people. See what others do. You talk to your colleagues.
Yeah, for sure.
And when starting making my games, I grabbed my old colleagues from the marketing department and asked for help, like how to make social media posts, how to make a video, SEO
That's where
stuff.
being able to network and knowing a lot of people comes really handy, especially if you're a single developer like this. It pays to know people in different fields and things like that there, where you can borrow ideas and like we were saying earlier, to really maximize your resource as an indie game developer.
And I was literally enabled to do pixel art by my old designer colleagues because I'm colorblind.
Are you really?
Like,
Okay.
I can't really differentiate between green and red.
Okay.
And there's a tool also from Adobe. I don't want to make ads for them, but it's a really good free tool.
Okay.
Adobe Color Wheel,
Yes.
where you enter one color and get a palette of fitting colors.
Yes, I use Adobe Color Wheel a lot for thumbnails. Yes, so I'll get the complementary color to choose what color to make my text with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they fit well and look good for the normal eye.
Yes.
Otherwise, I would have the problem. I look at some image I've drawn, and it looks good to me.
Yes.
But everyone else would say, hey, why is the grass red?
Yes.
For example. This is some kind of lava ground.
That's it. Well, it's interesting that you find ways to work around it as well.
And that's maybe why I can do pixel art, but still today I can't draw normally with paper and pencils.
All right.
So because I have no tools, I have no color hashes I can look at. I have to look at the pencil and another pencil and have to decide which fits the rest of the image best. No way for me.
Next thing you know, you have a handful of pencils and trying to mismatch everything. And all right, so I'd like you to talk to us a little bit about your creative process of creating a game. So a little bit just from the initial concept phase, going all the way to a finished product or near finished product. So what does that look like to you? What's your process? How do you like to approach just to be kind of efficient to create a game? Just the outlines. Yeah.
I always start with some kind of brainstorming. For me, it's more like a mind map. In original brainstorming, you just throw all words on a piece of paper and you're done. For me, it's a bit more structured. So in the end, I have already some kind of mind map. I either do this alone or with some friends.
Okay.
Maybe it's sometimes good, like rubber ducking, to talk to someone else.
Yes.
If he's a game dev or not, doesn't matter, but you have to ping pong your ideas. So that's a start. Then if I want to make a bigger game, there's some kind of research phase. For example, for Schachkampf, I downloaded about 10 chess games and looked what I like, what I don't like about them, wrote that down too, make lists what I want to implement, what I want to change and to differentiate from those games.
Right.
That's only for big games. If I just want to make a small game just to test something out, that phase wouldn't have been done. After my research or my mind map phase, I do something that's called the Moscow method.
Okay.
It takes the word Moscow without the O's. So you have MSCW for must have, should have, could have, and won't have.
Okay.
I make those 4 columns in my Trello board.
Okay.
Do it everywhere, but for me it's Trello.
Right.
And I put all the things I have in my mind map in one of those 4 columns.
Right.
The must-have phase is for the MVP. When that is done, I have a finished game, which I could give you, for example, and you could play it. It wouldn't be much fun. There's no polishing, no music, no sound effects, but the core game loop would stand. And so the
makes sense.
Should have phase are things like sound effects, music, animations, maybe a main menu or level screen or something like that.
Right.
When this is finished, you have a good product. It's a playable game which makes fun playing in best case. Could have phase are all the things like an online high score, for example, or if you have a time trial game, maybe a ghost. That's not necessary to race against a ghost, but a ghost is pretty cool. If I find the time to implement it, it makes the game way better than before.
Right. So that'd be kind of like a little bit of a bonus there that you can add to the game just to really polish it if you have to. But by now you have your core game loop, which makes the game functional. Then you have your spices, if you will, that makes the game kind of fun and engaging. And now you're talking about the little bit of extra that would really just kind of be nice to have there, but it's not necessarily essential for the game to be fun to begin with, right?
Yeah, and won't have, it's obviously everything which sounded good in the beginning, but not in the end, or things which are just too big to implement.
Yeah.
Like a crafting system. If you just want to make, for example, a 24-hour game jam game,
yes,
and think, crafting would fit very well. No, you don't implement a crafting game in a 24-hour game jam. It's just nuts.
It's not going to happen.
Exactly.
Yeah. No,
so, and when this is done, I have some kind of structure, know what I have to do, which things have to be done first, second, and third, like a tier list.
Yeah.
And after that, I take those things I have in the columns and split them into smaller tasks. For me, it's always good if a task is solvable in about 1 or 2 hours. Okay, because that's the time I have to sit down at my PC.
Kind of
I have
like
small kids. I have not much time to work and to dev, so 1 or 2 hours is enough, and I have to finish something for motivation. If you work every day on the same task and you even if you do something, you have the feeling that you make no progress. Yes. And if you can make a check mark and say, okay, done, it feels way better.
It feels way better. I definitely agree with that. And I think that's a really good approach on how to stay motivated whenever you're working, because you have an infinite amount of tasks, especially as a solo game dev. It just never ends. And I think it's really good that the way that you're describing it, where you kind of have everything categorized and then subcategorized, and that you're giving yourself tasks that you can do within one session, even if it's just a small task of a bigger task. So let's say you want to create a pause menu. But your task of the day is to create the buttons for that pause menu. Maybe you have time to finish that, and you can check it off, as opposed as if your task was to create this pause menu. It might take you a week to do it. So by the end of the week, you might feel a little demotivated that it's not done and you didn't get to checkmark anything.
Exactly. That's why I use it this way.
That's interesting. And, there's some psychology that goes behind that as well, where where it kind of creates a little bit of dopamine whenever that you go ahead and say, yeah, I did that.
Yeah, that's the main reason.
Yeah,
that's the main reason.
That's great.
Give myself some dopamine.
What's your biggest consideration that you want to keep in mind whenever you're creating a new game? So you're starting a new project. What's number one that you can't lose sight on?
Definitely scope. I overscoped with my current game. I thought I'm already good at scoping, but I wanted to finish the game on just before Christmas.
Okay.
Now we have March, and I think I need 3 more months.
Yes.
So I miscalculated for 6 months.
Would you say that I've come to find that one of the best way to scope, or the only way to know how to scope your game, is to start making games and realizing how much you overscope.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
This is
it's
the best
very,
lessons
very
for me.
easy. Yeah.
The best lessons for me have been game jams.
Okay, so you've done some game jams before?
Yeah,
Yeah.
quite a lot. I don't know, 10, maybe 10 game jams.
Really?
Before and during the development of my current game, because a lot of experienced game devs or developers at all say you have to fail fast. When you have an idea, you have to test it out fast, and if it is just trash, you have to fail fast, scrap the idea, make a new one. Yeah. That's what where game jams are perfectly for.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard that before too, where it's a good idea. It's really easy in game development to kind of get started on a project and just getting lost in it, and maybe work on it for maybe months and not actually have something that's functional yet to actually test to see if the game is actually fun. So I think that the fail fast is good. So start right away, create a prototype really quick, and just make sure that whatever your core game loop is fun, and that you can actually make it as well.
And the boring parts, you have to do the boring parts too for game jams, like menus.
Yes.
If you just fiddle around for yourself and share your game with friends, you make your game loop, you make your game screen, and if you died, you make a button like retry, and the game starts all over again. But for the game jam, you have to work on the UI. You have to make menus, buttons, options. You have to make the homepage, or the homepage like on itch.io, something like banners and thumbnails. It's like a mini publishing.
Yes.
You can see what works. So you make a thumbnail, no one plays your game. Next time to make a thumbnail a bit different, and everybody tries your game.
Right.
So you can learn a lot of things besides the core developing process. A lot of things which are also very important to publish a game in the end.
Yeah, I think that's great. So definitely scope. I definitely agree with you. That's easy, very easy to overshoot. And I think you really just learn about scope as you're doing projects. So we'll just say like you did a lot of game jams. What we're doing is we're doing mini games, we're doing mini projects, and we're giving ourselves like really tight deadlines of maybe 3 months or something like that to try to go ahead and do a concept and finish it. Whether or not we're happy with it in 3 months, it has to be finished to get used to start an idea, work the idea, and finish an idea within a certain time constraint. And,
I've read a similar approach, like you give different borders to yourself. You make a game in 24 hours, a game in 48 hours, a game in a week, a game in a month, a game in 3 months, and start all over again with like 24, 48, and so on.
Okay, yeah. That's
so you get a good feeling for scoping and what can you accomplish in which time frame. I didn't try it myself this way, but a lot of people I know swear that this is a good approach. And it
gives you a lot of experience. So you get to try different times scales, and you get to also work on a lot of different projects. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And what's the most common challenge you encounter during development whenever you're making a game, and what do you usually do to overcome it?
One big problem is hating my own game. It's not such a big problem in a small scoped project, but like I said, I work for over a year on the game, and it's always up and downs. Sometimes I think it's the best game ever, and there are weeks where I want just to delete the whole game and don't want to work on it anymore.
I think that's a very normal feeling. A lot of people go through those emotions up and down whenever you're working on it, and we all tend to be hypercritical of our own work. We want it to be great, and we know where things are bad, and we hyper focus on it, and it's a good thing in a way, but a lot of times a lot of people will never even notice the things that are bothering us. Right?
What helps for me is having side projects, like every dev.
Okay, yeah.
So I can do something else when I don't feel like working on a main project.
Right.
The other way would be to do nothing. but so I can do something else or do just some pixel art or improve the landing page. Like I said, for a solo indie developer, there are so many things you have to do on your own that you can always find something new. You can build your own web API. You can make a new homepage. You can make new banners, learn how to make a video or whatever.
Yeah, take a little break from what you're doing that's giving you stress. And instead, like you said, instead of doing nothing, take some time and just go and prove a different skill that's still helpful within what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's some pretty good advice. And what would you say, you've been doing this for how long now, indie games?
Maybe 3 years.
3 years or so. And what do you say is the most rewarding process or aspect of doing this?
Every first timer. So the first finished game was great, playing with friends. The first successful social media post was great, getting good feedback on a game. I remember the first time I posted my current game on Reddit and got like over 100 replies with feedback, and people said how they like the game.
Great, yeah.
It's really rewarding. And then things like the first blog post, yet now the first interview.
Yes.
Every first time is very interesting because it's always things you don't have in your day life. Even though I'm a developer, I develop for a company, and I don't have all the other aspects. I don't only develop my code and have my small part. It's a big project, and as an indie dev, you have everything on your own. It's sometimes very stressful, but it's also
can be very rewarding at the same time. I can definitely relate to that. Now that you were talking about that, I had some flashback of the first mini game that we did, which was a tower defense game. And I still remember the first time that I had a little animation. It's a little animal that's going down the path, and whenever it actually walked down the path, I like, whoa, that's amazing. I got my girlfriend, come see, it's working. Yes, all these little moments, mini victories, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I can definitely relate, and I say that's it is very rewarding. It is very stressful by time, but the flip side of that medal, that it is also very rewarding at the same time. Do you have any advice on how to stay motivated whenever you're going through your game development cycle? I know we talked a little bit about maybe just working on a different project for a little bit, and you've mentioned that you like to have things separated in different tasks. Do you have any other advice whenever it comes to motivation in your projects?
Unpopular opinion, it's not about motivation, it's about discipline. You have to keep going when you're unmotivated.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the way I try to do it. Not always, because I'm in the position with a normal day job. I don't have to finish. But whenever it's crunch time, I want to make a new update or implement a new feature, just crunch through if I want or not. I set fixed times, like example, work from 8 to 10 every evening, no matter what. And in the upcoming weeks, I don't meet friends. I don't have time for my wife in the evening. I just say, when the kids are sleeping, I have to work on the game until feature X is finished.
Yeah, definitely takes a lot of discipline, and I think you're right there. It's a little bit of a unpopular opinion, and everybody's looking on ways to stay motivated, but the main thing is to stay disciplined. I find that it helps a lot to just do a little bit every day, even if you don't feel like it. If you just do like 10 minutes, it's still 10 minutes. So if at the end of the week, let's say you would have never worked on it and you just did 10 minutes every day, you at least get an hour's worth of development in it.
Especially in the beginning.
Especially in the beginning. You get in that routine of always doing a little bit of something. And like you've mentioned before, it's a really good advice. If you don't feel like coding today, okay, well, let's just work on those animations a little bit. Do something different, but that's still in that, and have the discipline of being consistent. I really like that you brought that up.
I can really recommend the book Atomic Habits. I don't know if you know it.
Yeah.
That's exactly about the theme.
Yes.
It's better to do really small steps instead of doing nothing.
It's
in
kind of
the
my
end, you have a habit.
On a lot of things, so that's awesome that you brought that up. It goes a long way. It's unbelievable just how much just doing a tiny little bit every day over long term, is going to have a huge compounding effect, right?
Yeah, and it's for everything, not just coding or game dev. If you want to make sports, even if you just go for a walk 10 minutes after you stand up from your desk, it's a start.
That's it. That's it. A lot of the time you'll look at a task, and let's say that you want to just take working out for an example, because it's something that a lot of people maybe can relate to, and you want to go ahead and start working out. So you make yourself this plan, you find a plan on Google or whatever the case may be, and next thing you know, you have this 45-minute workout plan that you got to do 5 times a week. You get started, you're motivated, and that's where after a couple of weeks that motivation starts to go away, and now you have to have the discipline to keep doing it. And if you have to do an hour a day every day, once the motivation is gone, there eventually you're gonna stop doing it, and that's what happens in a lot of different aspects, and in game development as well. A lot of people will start a project, start too big, spend too much time in the beginning, and then eventually lose their motivation. And if you say, well, I'm gonna have to go and work on my game, but I'm gonna work for an hour, it's hard to motivate yourself to go and do that, or maybe you don't have the time. But if you say to yourself, well, I just got to go make 10 minutes, I can spare 10 minutes a day, I think it really makes a difference.
Yeah, it definitely makes.
Yeah. And finally, can you tell us a little bit about your fantasy chess game that you're making? Some highlights about it, or some upcoming features. I think you've mentioned that you might be releasing it officially in about 3 months.
Yeah, and I've already a demo out to play, and in 3 months I will officially release it on Steam.
Okay.
Till now, it's just about chess puzzles, and I will re-add local multiplayer and online multiplayer. The sad thing is it has been implemented last year.
Oh, has it?
Yeah. And I made changes to my game, so I had to scrap all that out, and now I have to re-implement it.
Okay.
But these are features I think are very important for a chess game.
Yes, for sure.
I just finished a beta tutorial, worked on that too the last days. When the game is released on Steam, I will add an Android version on Play Store.
Well, that'd be great. So just in closing, is there anything else that you'd like me to include or talk about with your game? So whenever we're done here, I'm going to do a little outro as well and talk just a little bit about your game. Are there any other highlights that you'd like me to mention?
I'm not prepared for that. It's not so special. It's just chess with retro optic, like you saw yourself, and the most important aspect, maybe it has endless puzzles. So you can play through the game, start a new game, and have new puzzles to solve, and don't play through the same puzzles again and again and again.
Okay.
So every playthrough is completely unique.
Okay, well, that's a good one. Just out of curiosity, really quick, I'm just curious, how do you put the puzzles in the chess game?
I got, Lichess.
Yep.
And Lichess has an open database you can use and download. And I downloaded all Lichess, all chess puzzles around Lichess, like 500,000 or so, and included them in the game with a random seed. Okay. So I just changed the seed one up and pull the puzzles with different difficulty. Made in 1, made in 2, made in 3. Right. Some parameters I pass in, but basically it's a big database.
That's interesting. Awesome. Well, thanks for your time, Dan. I really appreciate it. It was really fun talking to you. It took a little longer because I think we share a lot of common interests, so we took a little while in the beginning just chatting, but it was really interesting. I'm assuming, do you play on chess.com?
No.
You don't? No. Okay. No.
I don't play on chess.com.
Oh, that's too bad. So I would like to have a game of chess with you.
It's more the other way around. I plan on implementing Lichess to Schachkampf. Okay. It has an open AI.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you get the multiplayer working, whenever you have your game out, we'll play a game on your game.
Yeah, that we can do.
Right on. Okay, well, thank you again for your time. It was really great talking with you. You have some really good insight.
I had a lot of fun too.
Yes, okay, thanks.
It was an honor.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.